Hey guys, Asher coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. I am not alone. I am joined by Saf. Saf, what's up, man? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel.
Thanks for having me. I'm back. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man, from the HH Gaming Network. You guys are all familiar with Saf, right? He's one of my favorite dudes to watch, so knowledgeable about every single game. And a quick little announcement here, not the intent of today's video, but we're actually starting a collab video covering Dragonair. Going to learn everything that Saf has to teach me about Dragonair. We have no videos yet, but go ahead and check us out if you're into that kind of thing. Saf, Epic Empowerment is here.
It is here.
I'm freaking thrilled, bro, first of all, but there's actually a lot of, initially I was just going to make a video talking about the best epic heroes or the best epic champions to empower, but like, that's kind of intuitive. Like, yeah, the best epics are probably going to be better with better stats, right? So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the nuance of empowerment, maybe what to prioritize, what not to prioritize, what to think about when not to empower. I think that's a really, relevant, and also sharing the stat differential. What stats are we getting that we're not with legendaries or vice versa? You know what I'm saying? So first of all, overall thoughts on Epic Champion Empowerment.
Yeah, so I think my overall summary of it is, I think people will find it less valuable than they actually think to begin with. There'll be these like really big
Don't rain on our parade. Saf, come on, bro.
So I'm basically saying, like, I can't wait to +4 my Seeker, for example. In Clan Boss, we know, like, there's no punishment, there's no penalties. But then when you start going to arena, you're like, well, there's mythical champions, there's legendary champions. Like, does any of my is my +4 actually going to make me win something in arena? I think there's like maybe a few exceptions. Like, I can.
We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
So like, my initial reaction when I first saw it, I was like, is it kind of like, you've been asking for it for what, like 18 months?
Feels like since day 2. Yeah.
Is it just too late now? Have they just has the horse already bolted since they added mythical champions? Was a bit my feeling. But actually, sure. I think as you dig down into it, I think Centranos changes
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
There's different angles.
Progression as well. Like we tend to get caught up in we've been playing the game for years and years, but like if you're progressing and you pull a couple dupes of like even a high Katoon, whatever, like that could be valuable. In Curse City,
if you get lots of them, right? Yeah. That's the thing for progression players. Like, do you have the luxury? Like, unless you're playing my free-to-play account where I literally pulled about 4 Prundars.
But we all do it. We all pull dupes of something, even on a free-to-play. Like eventually, I want to ask you guys, my viewers. Do you guys have like dupes at the ready? Are you guys ready? And also, how long have you been playing? Who are your first priorities? We see here, Saf, they released the one-off Epic Empowerment. The replacements or whatever. The ones that you can't pull from shards. I find this very interesting only for one reason, and that is usually these are the worst, who they consider to be the worst epics are the empowerment like substitutions. So. Gerard the Stone, Excruciator.
Have they announced these? Wait, I haven't. You might be telling me something I don't even know about right now. Have they actually announced
the Doom
these?
Towers and the Jamsaras and stuff? It's on their Twitter and stuff. But basically, Gerard the Stone, Excruciator, Captain Tamilla, Tolf the Maimed, Spider, Thurask, Aboro, Caden, I disagree with those. Basilisk and Maeve are the 10 empowerment substitutions. So guys, in case you want to screenshot this, I have it in my community tab as well. Those are going to be the empowerment differentials. But we also have, just before we kind of get into the crux here of the video, we also have borrowed from Nubrave's dev build. We have the empowerment stats, right? Because this is something that I was waiting on, like, how are the stats going to compare to legendaries? And you can see right now, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Basically, if you fully empower here, and I'll move Saf over for a moment, we get a 40% bonus on the base stats, 40 extra resistance, 40 extra accuracy, 10 extra speed, 15% on is that crit rate and crit damage?
Yes, it's crit damage, crit rate. So it's 15% crit damage.
Okay, I was like, that's too good to be true. All right, 15% crit damage, 5% crit rate. So those are going to be the bonuses. So it's basically like, is that half of what you get from legendaries? Let me take a look. I have a legendary all ready to fully empower for the video to compare.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised that they didn't halve the primary stats. Like, they've given us the same amount of primary stats as a legendary gets.
It's 40, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I know the epic base stats will be a bit lower because naturally they're an epic. They don't have all the same. But actually, to be fair, when I first saw it, I was like, they'll probably do a +4 or it'll be a +2
no, you're
instead.
Right.
They've actually been very forgiving and given us the full whack.
The resistance,
of them.
the resistance, speed, crit rate, crit damage, all that stuff is less.
Down a bit, isn't it? I think it's like -15 of the axis resistance. It's minus, they've halved the crit damage and crit rate, and I think it's like a third less of the speed. So again, not too bad. I mean, the crit damage and crit rate potentially is a little bit punishing. Like you go from 10%, 30% to 5%, 15%. It's a bit harsh, but it could have been worse.
You're right.
This is me going a glass half full here. It could have been a lot worse than this. It's actually going to have meaningful impact to your champion, which is probably the most important thing.
40% base stats is huge. Even 5 speed. I mean, even what they, because we're looking at the full stats here. And to your point, 55 accuracy resistance on legendary, 10 crit rate, 30 crit damage, 15 speed on full empowerment. That's solid, but you're right, man. The epics, they were pretty kind. Like, I was bracing myself for epic empowerment is here. And then when you go in, you're like, what? You get like a
10 attack.
Yeah. Nothing, you know? I will say, like, maybe I'm being greedy here, Saf, but I would also love rare empowerment now that we have epic. I want to keep being greedy,
right?
This
was actually what I said. 100%. This is the first thing I said when I was talking about it on stream, because I often I throw it down ideas. I was like, well, if you're going to do epic, why not just do rare at the same time? Like, just copy paste. You know, I don't expect rares to have the full whack. Maybe they get 30% or 20%, right? But why not? Like, you're not harming anyone. Like, if someone wants to get so much rare
restrictive content and stuff, again, I agree. Like, is it a big deal? This is a great way to kind of soft buff an entire category, right? Of champion because of power creep. It doesn't make it all the way there. It's not going to your point at the top of the video, it's not going to make up for mythicals. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the first and foremost tips for people about empowerment, right? Well, then we'll talk about like arena and types of champions. But tips, like, I mean, first and foremost, I just want to make sure nobody goes out there, and would love to hear if you disagree with this, but I assume you agree, is I'm always going to go for my Banner Lord faction guardian, faction guardians before empowerment. So even if it's a Geo or a Seer or whatever, I'm not sacrificing, especially if you have the 6 speed already unlocked, you know, I'm not sacrificing any guardians at all for empowerment. Would you agree with that?
It's the same rule as legendary. Guardians first, then you empower, and don't empower. I would say, like, is probably not much worth empowering just +1, unless you just want to get, like, with epics, you can be a little bit more flexible with the fact that you might get a lot of them. I will say, like, for example, ×25 progressive events for epics become a little bit more interesting now, because you get quite a good chance of getting epics on, like, say, a ×2 progressive or something of that nature. But yeah, Guardians first, then you're still on this, like, 2 and 4 breakpoint. Like, if you really want to get a good value from the damage dealer, you want to be at that 4 breakpoint so that you get the crit rate and crit damage.
To your point, I wanted to ask you, is this going to change the way that you pull shards at all? Is this going to change anything about, like, are you going to pay more attention to the epics, for example, on progressive chances? You know, right now we have none.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for progressives, because generally, for my level of account, it's probably a little bit like yours. We look at the progressives at the legendary and the voids.
Yes,
the void
we don't even look at.
We don't even look at the epics, like, because it's like, oh, I've already got Allura, I've already got Seeker. But now I'd be looking for, will they do a progressive event on my Whispers or my Ugos for Hydra, or the Aboro for Hydra, or, you know, these epics and rares like Misguided Deity, which we know is, like, super good for Cintranos. I'll be looking for those progressive events to go, okay, now it's a good time to go for it. And also, I think it kind of gives a bit of value to ×2 again. I've kind of lost interest in ×2 because it's like, you're getting lots of things you don't need. We're at the position of our level of accounts where it's very much a void legendary focus or mythical. So I think for most players it should as well. I think they should be looking at these progressive events going, am I particularly using an epic that is having a visible impact in my teams? And therefore I might have to pull for the fusion anyway. So go for it.
I agree with you 100%. Now I'm just going to pay a lot closer attention to the epics on any event for the, you know, like, it might not push me over the edge. I'm certainly not saying, oh, go all out in every epic event, guys. But it's certainly something that now I'll pay a lot closer attention to. Let me ask you this, Saf. Is there any reason why, as soon as this update goes live, everybody shouldn't go out and basically empower all their epics. They're dupes.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
There is one big reason, the
Okay.
same reason when you do faction guardians and the same reason when you do many things, speed tuning. Do not suddenly +4 your champion and then run your team and forget that you've +4'd it and
Very
got 10
good
speed.
point, Saf. Yeah.
The amount of people that will probably be meshing and saying, why is this not working? It's like, you've got empowerment there, that's broken your team. You need to adjust it, so make sure you check it. Clan boss teams, classic example, do not +4 your seeker and expect it not to break. Double check. But that's the one thing I would suggest more than anything else, is make sure that if you want to empower someone, you don't sacrifice your guardians and you also don't break your speed tuning, because that is...
It's such a great reminder, man. It really is, because I think that the giddiness of the update, people are just going to be like, yeah, and just go crazy, you know?
Empower. I've got so many. Look how much storage I can free up. All these epics I don't need.
The first time you'll have storage in your vault. It'll be great. But I will point out, too, you can safely empower every single epic that you have on your account to level 1. You know, because the speed doesn't kick into level 2, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so at least you can do that.
It's the 2 and the 4 break point that's really, really big. Damage dealers benefit so much from 4 because of the crit rate, crit damage, right? If we think, for example, the average rank 6 roll is 6 to 7%. It's like a 5 to 7% in terms of like substat roll. Well, you're going to get, 20%? So you're effectively getting 3 extra rolls to your damage build, which is why +4 is really, really big for a lot of players. It's even bigger in Legendary, because you're getting all those primary stats, which is 40%. But more importantly, you're getting that crit rate, crit damage, like 3 saving rolls. That could be put to more crit damage or more speed or something of that nature. So really the 4 breakpoint is damage. 2 is when you want debuffers, because you get your first dose of accuracy and resistance as well in there for those situations. So
yeah, totally. Would this change the way that you build any of your champions? Or is it too... Yeah, go ahead.
If I +4 Seeker, I'm instantly rebuilding it for Clan Boss, because I could probably get a stronger build. Or if I'm +4 in my Whisper, well, that 10 speed might knock me into a position where I can bring maybe a merciless weapon that didn't have speed before, so I couldn't get into my minimum speed. Now I can, and that gives me 30% more crit damage or 20% more this. 10 speed is such a big change when you're looking at certain minimum breakpoints that I think everyone will probably +4 their heroes and their epics and go, oh, cool, I can now find a more powerful build and I can push my limits of my account a bit more, and it'll be a lot of fun.
It will be a lot of... I think people will actually notice, you know, in a big way, especially if you've been playing the game for a while, right? If you're sitting on a decent amount. I'm struggling right now on S20 in Soul Cross. Oh. I don't expect you to know the levels off the top of your head, but
that's the one with Archmage.
It's the
ironically.
One, yep. It's the one, not only do we have to go Siphi double Rotos at the end, but in the beginning, we have to go, okay, no, I was actually thinking of the Taras Marichka one, which is equally as bad,
19.
But that's 19. But still, like, these are ridiculously difficult content, and you might not be stuck here on your account, but your odds are you're stuck somewhere. You know, there's only a small handful of players that can clear this Cursed City content. And a lot of it is because levels like this, Tagore, Archmage Helmet, Dr. Pierce, Allure is my squad. I don't think I can fully empower all of these, but I at least have a couple levels on all of them, and I can't wait. I do have double allures on this team, for example. I'm going to state the super obvious, but you never know. I would not sacrifice an already built champion to empower another one. Just throwing it out there, guys, you know, just even if I don't really use them, you never know in the future. I would not sacrifice all those resources spent, on those champions. I wanted to touch on Arena. I mean, well, let's talk about PvE real quick, Saf. Is there any area that, I mean, I just mentioned the Cursed City. Is there any area that you're really looking forward to taking advantage of this? And is there a special sort of champion that you're looking out for besides the obvious in terms of PvE empowerment? Your Seers, your Geos?
Actually, I would be looking more towards Finite Hard, because there's actually quite a number of Finite Hard epics. We're talking Creodon, Neldor. We're talking, there's another one as well. Gory, there's one more, I forget it.
Ruella.
That are very, very good for Finite Hard, even all the way from the early game all the way through to the end game, right? They're very valuable. Also then can transfer into Sintranos. Like Creodon is great for Sintranos AoE freeze, turn meter boosts. Those champions I think will benefit, because we all know Finite Hard, the question isn't how much speed you need, is where can I get more speed, right? You're not really asking the limit. You're going, how can I find more speed? It's always about going faster to improve your reliability. So having 10 extra speed having the not having to build 5% more crit rate. Like these are very valuable stats. 50 more accuracy. Like, if we think this is where Sintrana's hard mode is much easier for players, is when you've got a maxed out Great Hall and you start getting all these faction guardians and you get these empowerment bonuses and then you get the area bonus. Like, you're building up such a large stockpile of things like accuracy that you can actually afford to, in your build more resistance, which means it makes these waves that apply stun effects or freeze effects or buff strips easier to build for. Whereas right now, even in my position where I've got a max Great Hall, you just don't have the budget with some of these rare and epic champions to be able to build an accuracy and resist and tanky build and then still be able to kill the Taras or the, my Gnarl Horn is not going to kill a Taras and they want us to. Yeah. So it's like this is where it's going to be really good. So that's Finite Heart is the one that came to mind instantly for me. I know a lot of people were probably thinking about Godseeker and Neri and Sand Devil as well. That could be very helpful. 40% more health. That's a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking about Lady Annabelle, like in solo content, like solo champions, out there, definitely going to help with that. That 40% stat boost is mammoth. I mean, granted, that's if you're lucky enough to have, but even 10% across the three main stats is really big. Also, like, I mean, you mentioned all the. Back in our day, Saf, when we started playing this game, when you look at a character total stat screen, it was their basic stats and artifacts, right? And
pretty much.
Yeah, and now we
have
with
arena bonus and like a little bit of Great Hall and then a sprinkling of something else. It's like that's what you get.
Now we get masteries, fashion guardians, empowerment, blessings, area bonuses. There's a lot, and now Epics can actually take advantage of this category, which is some of the best stats available outside blessings. So that's really.
There are a number of epics that have really good skill sets, but they're just impossible to keep alive. Wuji comes to mind. Like, it's got like nearly like 9,000 health or something. So although it's still going to scale off that base HP, what it's doing is like giving you that little bit of boost to basically compensate for like the terrible base stats that they decided to give it. So
true. I want to try out Wuji. That's a good call out there.
It's really good Hydra. It's so hard to keep her alive because everything scales off a percentage.
Base.
Trying to get any health on her is like, I can put 60% health chest, 60% boots, 60%, and it's still not that much. So having a little bit more will just help mitigate that.
I love it. Let's talk about PvE before we let you go, man. Who are your most exciting? Like, I have a few off the top of the dome here. I'm sure they're probably going to be the same, but I wanted to start out with the guy that I'm probably personally most excited about is this dude right here, Vogoth. Vogoth is so cool, man. Like, the way that I just think he's really freaking, and you know what? Vogoth is a champion too that not only is he really intriguing to what he could do inside the arena, I'm not saying he's going to be freaking finishing top and plat, but like for 99% of players out there, like you could use a Vogoth. You could probably already use a Vogoth, but to your point, you could also double dip with Fire Knight, man, triple hitter on the A1. Yeah. He's got a provoke. He's got a really underrated kit. The rest of his kit, I feel like. So, Vogoth, I would love to see some of these old school epics who used to have a place before blessings and empowerment in the arena. See if this gives a little bit of, because 40%, if again, I keep going with 40%, but if you can eventually get there, that's pretty big, it's pretty mammoth.
I think it's reasonable to assume a 40%. We know legendaries plus 4 legendary is ridiculously hard because the chances of you getting 4 of the same legendary is the challenge. But when you come to epics, especially when we go into these times to ancients, or if they do like double primal rates like they've just done, you will collect a lot of, like, you'll see the epics a lot. They'll just keep coming. I mean, the amount of times I do it in Soul Stones where I just keep seeing the same epics over and over. So I think they add more legendaries than they add epics. So the epic pool doesn't grow as much.
True.
It's
very true
to assume that you're going to get that.
So it's easier to just like, you play Watcher Realms too, or have you a little bit?
I've dabbled.
Okay. And I'm not sure if Dragonair has this, but we'll discuss it on our new channel. But like they have epic empowerment essentially in the game of the version. But to your point, like, over time, it feels like everybody slowly starts getting all their epics awakened, It doesn't happen immediately, and it's not going to be the ones that you want all the time, but it does serve a very, very real purpose in mitigating power creep to higher rarities, because it's easier to get these stats on the epics, to your point.
Exactly. I mean, I actually have in my vault at the moment 7 Madam Cereses. Because she used to be so good. I was I might need another one of these.
There's my next one. There you go. So do you think that, and this is a whole nother conversation for another video, Saf, but like, I have this hypothesis lately. I talked about Armands, and I feel like even saying the A word on the video is going to get like demonetized and taken down. But I think that maybe, because I've complained not only just about epic empowerment or lack thereof, but I've also complained about polymorph and stuff. And I'm starting to think that maybe, man, like this, and this is going to be a whole new video, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but maybe I'm a little bit out of touch, like maybe polymorph isn't that big of a deal. I'm just seeing only 6 stars all the time, and it's happening to me all the time, but it doesn't really mirror your average player's experience, and maybe it is a good thing. And I say that because I use Madame Ceres on my mini account, and she doesn't get sheeped that often, man. I'm not going to lie. It's just like, but anyway, I digress. Do you think that Madame Ceres, like, now could actually be even more viable again, with empowerment?
I mean, she is, like, people always remember Madame Ceres for A3, where she takes all the buffs and she replaces it with... That is, to me, not the biggest strength of Madame Ceres. Her A2 is what's the most disgusting thing about Madame Ceres, because she only needs to steal 1 buff, then you get feared, she puts like shields and all sorts going on. It's just, you actually don't get to take a turn. She becomes a crowd control champion as much as she becomes a buff steal. She obviously was used in the past for, like, boost, strip, nuke.
Yep.
But actually the A2 is equally as strong, and there's a lot of times when you need 2 rolls at the stone skin dice, right? You can't, like, you'd use Romantu, you tried a buff strip, you didn't get it, now you have to wait for his A3 to come back. She has 2 rolls at that dice. That's strong. So she could make a reoccurrence. To your point on polymorph briefly, I actually think you're right. If you're playing like below goal 2 live arena, that kind of position, you probably don't see polymorph a lot. Polymorph only becomes annoying when you're fighting lots of people with polymorph, because the change they made to polymorph meant it only rolls once. So if you have 1 enemy with 1 set of polymorph, well, it's a 20% chance. It's very low. It's when you have 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 is when it becomes a problem. So if they just made it exclusive, we'd have so much better experience. On a lower tier, absolutely some of these epics that we may have gone, they just don't have a cutback. Like people like Gembo, doesn't have the juice anymore to cut through some of the new stats. Well, he might have more juice now with these new stats. Like he's getting 40% more attack. He's getting 15% more crit damage. Hopefully that kind of additional stats might bring him back so that he can compete with some of the sort of mid-tier to late game arena teams you're fighting. Whereas before it'd be like, he's never going to get through. He just doesn't have the juice anymore. Like we remember the days when Foley used to be so dominant. Unless you have a +4 Foley right now, you've got no chance of killing half the mythicals in the game and the legendaries. So I absolutely think, for me, my number 1 epic that I think will make a resurgence, because I've even been thinking about using him recently, Venax.
Ooh, I like that call out. I like that. A1. With that A1?
Absolutely, because right now it's a Harima meta, because Armand's is magic. So how do you counter Armand's? Stone skin and weak hitting. Well, Harima's a perfect fit into that because she's strong. She's a strong affinity to him.
Yeah.
So she is literally everywhere. Venax is one of the hardest counters to Harima because he literally picks on her. A1, it's really, really high damage. She can't really do much. As long as you can get a debuff on her, you're good to go, especially if you have Necret. With him with Necret it used to be my old team. Just like pick off the people one by one, and there's nothing they can do.
I like where your head's at here, Sab. I like this idea.
Wukong, for example, he's neutral affinity to Wukong. How many times have we sat there? Wukong, Sun Wukong.
I know. Who'd you say first? Sorry.
Venax. How many times?
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Have we sat
with that
there?
A1? Yep.
He keeps reviving because we can't kill the ultimate Death Knight.
Yep.
Well, the second hit of Venax can go past.
Can pop off. Can be plenty
so
to pop off. Sunwoo. Yeah.
Pop him off, kill him once, stays dead. GG. That's kind of like I think he will make a reappearance as probably on the arena side, the number 1 empowered epic, I would say.
Ooh, I like that call, man. I really do. You know what? It's funny because I was thinking in my head, Sand Lashed. I was thinking about like some, I guess, more defensive, but you're absolutely right about Venax. You're absolutely right. I've even seen somebody draft him in live arena against me when I played Harima, to your point, somewhat recently. It didn't work out for them, but maybe with the +4 empowerment, it would have,
Yeah.
But hey, man, I'm really excited overall. I feel like we shared a lot of valuable information. What not to do, more so than just listen off the best, because like otherwise, go ham. Like go ahead and empower all your epics as long as you're not breaking one of those cardinal rules, or you're prepared to re-speed tune your team as well. But other than that, man, I think that's all that I wanted to say. Any final thoughts on your end?
No, I'm
Okay.
really interested to see how people deal with it, how people approach it. I'm curious to see how many people actually have saved up all these epics, because I certainly haven't saved many of them because I have no storage. Then, if they could fix the storage issue, I don't really want to
Same.
pay. Was it 500 gems for 10 slots? I don't want to pay you that. So, it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see. But the nice thing about epics is we don't necessarily have to do what we do with legendaries, which is save up 4 of them before we can empower them, right? We can just chip away, +1 it as we get it. Really good. And it's good to
That's
see that
true.
they've already thought about the non-summonable epics, and we can, empower them, because some of them are really good. Like, people underestimate the strength. Dark Kael and Gwyneth actually appears, I think they're in the top 10 of the most stage appearances in all of hard mode Cintranos, those two.
Okay.
So they're
Yep.
one of them. Like, if you have them, you should build them because they appear in a lot of the stages of Cintranos. So being able to empower them, and they're very good. Dark Kael and Gwyneth are very good epics, and they're free. So you have to get
Only
the epics.
bummer with Gwyneth is I feel like Caden's the best, probably the best out of all the replacement, the replacement champs here.
The only thing is I've got a
yeah.
+6 basilisk, and that does a lot of damage. A fully awakened. So I might actually want to +4 the basilisk, because I think he's better than Ziichi.
Yeah. Same.
With my 6-star
Basilisk,
awakened.
Caden, Abaro, those are the ones that I would consider maybe not doing,
I mean, Taya is very good because she's one of the few poison activators.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
So she's a different role. They're both equally as good.
But Gerard the Stone, man, I really don't like that guy, so I'm excited to empower my Archmage if I have any.
Yes, Gerard the Stone. He hits really hard, but then he reminds me of the legendary version that they reworked. I can't remember. Errol hits really hard on one ability, but then he's just kind of like sitting there until he can kill someone.
Yeah. Anyway, man, hey, this is some ideas for you guys, but let us know who's the first champion you're gonna run into and empower when the update hits, and what do you think of all this? Are you waiting for the rares as well? Are you totally content with the epics? Let us know any strategies, thoughts, anything else you want to add to the conversation in the comments below. Saf, thanks again for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it. Thanks for watching, and as always, take care, guys.